My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is, if getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now, 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-783-0810 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-783-0810. Again, that's 800-783-0810.
Evening. Welcome to the Red Wine. It is, boy, next time we're on, the election will be over. Isn't that crazy, Lou?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh my gosh, I can't even believe it. So we're getting right up there, a week to go, less than a week to go, and we will find out if we are going to need to buy more guns or if we will be fine for a while. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I think that in the very slim chance that Trump doesn't win, I believe that, and I do believe that it is a very slim chance. I believe that if you haven't bought your guns and ammo already, you're not going to find them.
Yeah, no kidding, no kidding. We and Lou and I were just talking about this before the show started. Diane, shout out to Diane. She actually had an emergency board meeting thing she needed to go to, so we missed you. So have you guys all seen on Twitter lately these crazy tweets by random people on the left that Biden is better at 2A?
Yeah.
Lou and I were just talking about that.
The one guy that did it, I don't think that he was that random. I'm not sure he was a blue check, but I was, oh, there it is. I searched for it. Let me.
I think I saw it because Orty had tweeted to him.
Well, he might not be. No, he's a 216,000 follower account. Yeah, Travis Allen is his name. So he's not just some rando.
Well, yeah, but he's not the only one, but he is definitely one that I definitely saw today.
Yeah, there have been plenty of randos doing it too. And so here's my theory, as I was sharing with you before the show. My theory on that is because of all the new gun owners, that they believe they can pull the wool over their eyes because they're not, like NRA types, so they don't know any better. They can say that, and people will just automatically think that Biden is going to protect their right to own their weapon. I don't think anybody's going to fall for it, but they do. I think they do, and I think that's exactly where they're coming from. They're like, they won't know any better.
Yeah, and I think that they were saying, there's so many new people that live in cities that are scared because of all the rioting that they've gone out and purchased guns and they've never owned a gun before. So, like you said, they don't know really the full story on everything. But, man, I just think that is such a ridiculous thing. What he tweeted, for those out there in the world that aren't on Twitter, he made a comment that he had gone into a gun store. He doesn't say where or what state or what town or anything. And the gun owner was telling him that he's voting for Biden because he'll do so much better on 2A issues. Does anybody believe this?
No.
No.
I think anybody who's
really,
especially if you weren't a gun owner and you bought one because you felt that you needed one, the moment that you bought that gun, you knew who was going to try to take it away from you from the very moment that you bought it. I don't think they're getting over on, if they're getting over on anybody, is a very small group of people. And if somebody's voting for Biden, it doesn't have anything to do with his stance on 2A unless they are a fellow gun grabber.
Right. Yeah. It's just, I mean, I don't know. It's a silly thing, but that's the kind of, I'm so tired of blatant lies. My 7-year-old at the dinner table said this, or my, 86-year-old mother told me this, or, my local gun owner. I mean, I think we all see through those things.
My woke 5-year-old.
I know. Uh-huh. Those are really, I think we can all say we hope 2021 is the end of your woke child telling you some, profound thing that you actually, you yourself said. So anyway, that's one thing we were talking about. The other thing we have been talking about, which I'm sure everybody has been talking about, was this interview that went on Tucker last night. Tony Bobulinski, which was amazing. If you hadn't seen it, you should go back and watch it. But we were talking about how, the New York Post ran with the story. And on Twitter, if you're not on Twitter, even on Facebook, if you tried to post the New York Post story, it wouldn't post, or those people, they had their accounts taken down. I'm trying to think off the top of my head who were some people that you and I follow that had their accounts temporarily suspended. There's several, but there was a more, famously was a Politico reporter. There's just been different people who tried to push that New York Post article that basically were getting censored. And so Jack from Twitter went in front of the Senate today to discuss the censorship yeah, I can't say enough about Ted Cruz. I love this man.
Yeah, so Ted was, I think you're going in and out, Jody. I'm not really sure why.
Oh,
Yeah, so Ted,
I don't know.
So Ted took his opportunity. We've got that clip. Do you want to just play it to start off?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you something. You claimed it was because of a hacked materials policy. I find that facially highly dubious and clearly employed in a deeply partial way. Did Twitter block the distribution of the New York Times' story a few weeks ago that purported to be based on copies of President Trump's tax returns?
We didn't find that a violation of our terms of service and this policy in particular because it was reporting about the material. It wasn't distributing the material.
Okay, well, that's actually not true. They posted what they purported to be original source materials, and federal law, federal statute makes it a crime, a federal felony, to distribute someone's tax returns against their knowledge. So that material was based on something that was distributed in violation of federal law, and yet Twitter gleefully allowed people to circulate that. But when the article was critical of Joe Biden, Twitter engaged in rampant censorship and silencing.
And again, we recognized errors in that policy. We changed it within 24 hours. This is.
But you're still blocking the New York Post. You haven't changed it.
We have changed it. They can log into their account, delete the original tweet.
You forced a Politico reporter to take down his post about the New York Post as well. Is that correct?
Within that 24-hour period, yes. But we, as the policy has changed, anyone can tweet
so
the article.
Twitter takes the view you can censor the New York Post, you can censor Politico, presumably you can censor the New York Times or any other media outlet. Mr. Dorsey, who the hell elected you and put you in charge of what the media are allowed to report and what the American people are allowed to hear? And why do you persist in behaving as a Democratic super PAC, silencing views to the contrary of your political beliefs?
Let's give Mr. Dorsey a few seconds to answer that, and then we'll have to conclude this segment.
Well, we're not doing that, and this is why I opened this hearing with calls for more transparency. We realize we need to earn trust more. We realize that more accountability is needed to show our intentions and to show the outcomes.
Thank you, Senator.
So I hear the concerns and acknowledge them, but we want to fix it with more transparency.
Thank you, Senator Cruz.
So, Jody.
Yes.
Did you, I don't know how much of this you got to watch, but something really struck me about this particular hearing. A lot of the Democrats on the committee and the CEOs of the tech companies seem to be on the same page with what their defense was. Jack's very ridiculous answers there were, we're not doing that, right? Which is in pure insanity. Even the trolls that get conservative accounts suspended know that they're gaming the system because Twitter doesn't like those accounts.
Right.
Even they know that. And the Democrats' whole spin was, this is a sham. It's not really happening.
Yeah.
It was insane.
Yeah, it is insane. And it is like the Democrats constantly saying there's no such thing as voter fraud. It doesn't matter how many times you give examples or you show something. They stay with the same story because I suppose they can.
Yeah, it's worked for them.
Tonight, the New York Post, we were talking about their headline, and their cover page says they're being blackmailed to delete their original tweet.
Yeah, that's a good cover.
Yeah, it is. It is. Because Ted Cruz went on then and tried to post the story again, and it wouldn't let him. If you go to Ted Cruz's Twitter page, and then an hour later he was able to post it, and he says, finally, I can post this. But it is interesting, isn't it, that even though they made it sound like, oh, no, that was just a glitch, just go back and change it, you can do that. People were still not able to do that this morning even.
Yeah, and the New York Post, like you said, is still locked, and their answer is that it doesn't happen. But it did happen. You just told a story about how it happened, and then he could not answer. Well, did you block the story about Trump's tax returns? And he can't, and what was the ridiculous answer on that one? Well, that wouldn't be appropriate. Well, why is it appropriate for the Post and not the Times?
Right, exactly. And we talked about this last week for those that listened. There was a ridiculous story, or maybe it was even the week before. My weeks are getting messed up. A ridiculous story about SEAL Team 6, and that was allowed to be retweeted and posted and retweeted and posted. So, definitely a very odd way that Twitter decides what is okay and what's not okay. So, yeah, I don't know.
And Blumenthal was the one that got me, because he basically said that the Republicans, again, puppets of Putin, had the CEOs in there to try to manipulate them into posting misinformation and disinformation. That is actually literally what Blumenthal said.
Yeah, and I first of all, I was really glad that Ted Cruz pointed out the fact that the New York Post is 200 years old. It was, Hamilton started it. Just everything he said about it, basically legitimizing, this is nonsense that you're calling this disinformation.
Yeah, it's that was the most insane thing.
Yeah, it was insane. But on Tony, did you get to watch the full Tucker thing last night?
I did.
Yeah, I was wishing I could have seen it live. I had to listen to it because I actually had to take Mary to cheer last night. So I was watching her cheer while I was listening, and I just couldn't get over how there was a lot of detail.
Yeah, he's extremely credible. So there's a couple of things about Tony that make him particularly credible. One is that he's got all the documents to digitally stored, the way they were received, right? So if you're talking about electronic documents received via email, text messages through WhatsApp, and any other messenger they were using, and text messages, SMS messages, he has all of them in their original form, right? So he has 3 phones that he hasn't deleted anything off of. So he has the timelines, he has the sequence, he has all the conversations, he has all the backup documents. He's got multiple versions of the contract that they were negotiating. The first few of which have Joe Biden in the contract.
Right.
So so they had meetings. They're documented by, you can still go back and show that they were all in those hotels at the same time, that they were at this conference. It's all documented.
Right.
It's all documented.
And you would think
stuff.
Secret Service would be able to say too, like, yes, Joe Biden was here at this time. You know what I mean?
Well, that's why Ron Johnson asked for Secret Service records. I'm sure that he's trying to validate some of that as well. But yeah, it's all that's definitely one of the backups is the Secret Service records. They can prove Biden and Bobulinski were in the same place at the same time. There's probably proof that they met. He has so much backup for what he's saying. He can connect his story with documents, conversations with Hunter, conversations with Jim Biden, and their conversations with each other can probably be tracked to some extent. So, this makes him really credible. The fact that he had a top secret clearance makes him credible. All of his investigations and audits can be accessed and combed through. And I mean, there is nothing, nothing he says sounds sensational, right? He doesn't tell any
right.
doesn't tell any stories about, Hunter smoking crack or Joe Biden womanizing or anything. It is all strictly business. That's it. Nothing is sensationalized.
Well, and he's a credible person to begin with, like his background, everything about him. He is well respected, and now the New York Post and not the New York Post, excuse me, the Washington Post and other outlets are trying to discredit him, make it sound like, well, he's always been a shady business dealer,
Yeah, and interestingly enough, they say that about most people who do business, except for the ones that there's actual evidence that they're shady business.
Right,
like
right.
But yeah, and that's what makes this so Orwellian, right? Is that there's all of these accusations and innuendos about people with no evidence whatsoever, but the people where there's actual evidence that they've done things that are just really unconscionable, it's like there's no there.
Right.
And this has been going on for a very long time. The Bidens are not the first to benefit from this. I mean, it goes back beyond the Clintons.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, it's not like any of this is new, right? So
no, but what's upsetting, though, Lou, and I don't know if you've had talks with your Democratic friends, what's upsetting is they don't seem to care. Honestly, and the response I got from one of my friends was, well, yes, but this was in 2017, and he wasn't in office then. Well, you didn't care that he had been vice president? Or you didn't care that he still wanted to run again to be president? Like, I don't understand that at all.
I don't know if people really understand the Chinese and what the Chinese are and how they operate and why they do things. See, it's the why they do things, right? So
right,
and it's on the Biden side too. It's the why were you doing this to begin this? Well, you were doing it just to pad your pockets. That's why you were doing it, and that's all. And just if you look at the deal that Chris Hines and Hunter Biden made for China with purchasing, I can't remember the name of the company, it starts with the H, but they helped them purchase a company that they now hold, a Chinese conglomerate now holds the controlling stake in one of our defense contractors that held the key to the stealth technology behind our new bomber, 23. Is it? It's not J-23. That's the Chinese plane that China made after they got this technology because Hunter Biden and Chris Hines helped them buy this company. So I don't know if that made any sense to you at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you and I get it, and whether or not, even right now, if Chelsea Clinton went and got a job where she was able to basically provide her parents as liaisons to senators and to, basically that's the only reason China would hire her to do anything is so that she could use her influence to try to get things passed here in the States. I think we all get that. I think it would be even seedier if her mom was just now going to run for office again and was trying to get in. It was bad enough when she was Secretary of State doing it. So I don't know. People are either willingly, they're either just really don't want to believe it and they just hate Trump so much they just don't even care, or we just really, I don't know, maybe we've just gone so far down the rabbit hole, people just have such low expectations of politicians.
Dems didn't care about shit like this long before Trump came along. So
yeah.
I know a lot of them use that excuse, but they didn't care about shit like this long before Trump came along. They didn't care about it with Clinton, and they didn't care about it with Obama. They didn't care. Obama could do anything.
Right.
He can drop pallets of cash, $1.9 billion on
the
tarmac in Iran, and nobody gives a fuck. But if Trump, if any Republican president did that, George W. Bush had done that, it would,
oh my gosh,
completely blown up.
Well, you think about what they impeached Trump for. I mean, that looks like kindergarten compared to what we're talking about right here.
They impeached him for trying to find out about this. That's what they impeached him for, or not even, not even trying to find out about it, but encouraging Ukraine just enough, and considering how much Ukraine had been discouraged by America from doing that in the past, right? To the point where you're not getting any money if you don't stop doing this.
Right.
He needed to do that, right? If you need to look into this, that's not what he said. He said you should look into this. But if he hadn't done that, and we've talked about it was a dereliction of duty, because that is actually his job to make sure that law and order is upheld. But it's a disservice to Ukraine if you don't let them know, basically there's a new sheriff in town and you don't have to go by what they told you before. You should look into this, because it's corruption in your country just like it's corruption in mine. But, nobody ever stops to even question that. Nobody even looks at it from that angle. Well, what if he hadn't said anything to Zelensky? Well, Zelensky might have felt like he couldn't do it because they had been threatened with it in the past.
Right.
Or
I think, do you think any average American understands anything that was going on in Ukraine to this day, even after the impeachment?
No, they don't.
I don't think so either. I think if I hadn't been watching Glenn Beck and all his charts, where he's linking, he's showing you on his huge screen how this matches with this. It's mind-boggling.
Well, yeah, and even at a high level, I think most people tune it out, because if you listen too long, people start drilling into the details, and it gets really complicated.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, it is. So, okay, when we come back, we're going to play that phone call, that famous phone call where it's not Trump's phone call. This one would be Joe Biden. And then I also have a question for the chat room, because I was talking about this today with someone, and they don't believe that this drop or this bombshell will have any influence whatsoever on the election. I would really like to know what the people in the chat room think. So we'll take a little poll while we go to break, and we'll be back right after this.
Get up! Get your hand above the red wine. Get up! Get your hand above the red wine. I can't get up out of bed.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans, America's largest mortgage lender. Spring will be here soon, so if buying a new home is on your to-do list, right now is the time to call Quicken Loans. Learn about which mortgage options make sense for you and get a jump on your competition. With our exclusive Rate Shield approval, the low rate you lock today is protected for up to 90 days while you shop for your new home. With a Rate Shield approval, if rates go up, your low rate stays locked. But if rates go down, you get that new, even lower rate. Either way, you win. Talk to us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com to take advantage. Here's another great reason to work with us. For a record 9 years in a row, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation in customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. Again, to lock in today's low mortgage interest rate and get the security of our exclusive Rate Shield approval, call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com.
For J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year fixed-rate loans. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. License in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
Hi, welcome to the Subway ad for the new Sesame Ginger Glazed Chicken Signature Wrap. How would you like it?
I'll take a...
Sports announcer at home?
Yeah, how'd you...
We just know.
My wife picks up the new Signature Wrap. It's got double the rotisserie-style chicken mixed with a sesame ginger glaze. She appears annoyed at me, but she shrugs it off. Those sweet and savory flavors are calling her name. She lifts the wrap and... she takes the bite! Incredible! And now she's closing the door on my... Subway, make it what you want.
Limited time only at participating restaurants. Double meat based on average 6-inch sub.
I'm little teapot, short and stout.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
No, Dad, like this. When I get all steamed up, then I shout, tip me over and pour me out.
This is WWE superstar Roman Reigns. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
With this crazy feeling in my head, I said, get up, get your man a bucket of red wine. No, get up, get your man a bucket of red wine. Oh, get up, get your man a bucket of red wine.
Biden goes into overdrive to clean up loose ends. November 16, 2016, 2 weeks after Donald Trump's victory, Joe Biden is on the phone with Poroshenko. His voice tenser now than before.
This is getting very, very close. What I don't want to have happen, I don't want Trump to get in a position where he thinks he's about to buy onto a policy where the financial system is going to collapse and he's going to be looked to pour more money into Ukraine. That's how he'll think about it before he gets sophisticated enough to know the detail.
In other words, Biden does not want Ukraine asking for more money from Trump. Doing so would cause Trump to look into the details.
So anything you can do to push the Privat Bank to closure so that the IMF loan comes forward, I would respectfully suggest is critically important to your economic as well as physical security.
Critically important for economic and physical well-being.
Well, okay then. I keep asking myself what he meant by physical security.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's kind of, I mean, that's quite a threat, right? Like,
right.
And what was Poroshenko supposed to get from that? Well, they're just going to let Russia roll in. I mean, what was he supposed to assume was meant by that?
Yeah, I think it's very curious, and I'm surprised people aren't asking that.
Right. So, you asked the chat room what they thought, whether they thought it was going to move the needle, as they say. And
right.
I think, what did we get from them? Because, well, I have to update. So, Orty says they need to focus on Biden and not Hunter. I feel like they've kind of been trying to do that.
Yeah, I think they're trying to. Like, I went and looked at Trump's Twitter page. He does talk about Biden crime family, Joe Biden. I think he's trying to. I think the problem is you've got people on the left who are very much just saying, well, I'm not voting for Hunter. This is all about Hunter. I don't care about Hunter. So I really feel like that's maybe spin. I mean, don't you think that that's their way to get out of that right now, by playing stupid, by saying it's just about Hunter?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's really all he can say, is that I wasn't involved. I didn't really know about it, that kind of thing. But Bobulinski blows that right out of the water. To say it's a smear campaign, and all of the things that they're saying about it is really their only options and what they think people will believe. Like the Russian disinformation thing was, they really feel like they have people completely mesmerized.
Yes.
And controlled by the mere mention of Russian. See, that they've created like this big boogeyman of Russia disinformation, and it's very cult-like. It's very manipulative. It's how cynical, to believe that you can manipulate people like that. It's sickening, really. But the other thing that we got from Ron is that, I think it was Ron. No, it was MD said, I don't think there was enough time or enough coverage to have a large effect. I think that, I think that's right. I don't know that there's, and when you say large effect, what are you talking about? Or do we have 5% of the people that are really undecided? Not like the people who say they're undecided so they can get on a news program and then shock everybody with their choice. But people that are really undecided, there's like maybe 5% of them. But what did Trump win by in 2016? It was less than 5%, wasn't it? 3%?
Yeah, it was low.
Yeah, just 2 or 3% that he won by. So 5% can make a difference. The other thing is the motivational factor, right? So the people that are tuned in, people that are watching Fox News or OANN, well, anybody watching OANN, it's already decided, I'm sure. But anybody watching Fox, watching Tucker has a huge audience. Or even, running across the Washington Times or, I don't know what other outlets they would see it on. There's not very many, right? But maybe they listen to a podcast or something, and they were truly undecided because of all those reasons that the Democrats think they're going to beat Trump, which is that they really believe that everybody hates him as much as they do.
Right.
I truly believe that. Them and the Never Trumpers believe that. And there's a lot of people out there that just, they don't hate either one of them, but they don't like either one of them either.
Right. I think that's a lot.
Yeah. I think it's at least 5%, which is pretty much what the polls are saying it is, but, it's probably higher than the polls. So yeah, I think
I would say that. I would say you're right.
I think those people can probably be swayed by something like this, right? If you're truly not in love with either of them, but don't really hate either of them, kind of want to choose like the best guy, the one with the better character. This is the kind of thing that sways you, and it only has to be 2 or 3% of people. And if you look at the polls now, a very smart media person told me that the polls 2 weeks before start to trend in a more accurate direction. Well, they're definitely trending toward Trump, no matter how wrong they've been for the past 5 years. They're trending toward Trump now. So
yeah, I hope that's true. And
go ahead.
We were also talking, you and I, about how ridiculous some of the polls seem to be. Like the NBC saying Texas is going to turn blue.
It's just like, I think it's just like you do in statistics, right? Basically, anything that's way off is an outlier. You throw it out. I mean, just forget it.
Yeah.
So most of the polls, and the other interesting thing is you can tell where a lot of those places are coming from. When we were talking about Georgia, Stacey used the phrase polling Atlanta. Well, that's exactly what they do. They poll, they end up getting in the poll a disproportionate number of people from Atlanta. I think that national polls do the same thing. They get a disproportionate amount of people from California and New York. That'll sway a poll. When you're talking about 1,200 people, 1,300 people in a poll, you can sway a poll if it's disproportionate, an area like that. So if you look at... if you look at the majority of the statewide polls, it looks really good for Trump because you have to realize that all of those places are also polling disproportionately around their metro areas, just like they do Georgia and Atlanta.
Right.
So that's what's good. That's what's really wrong with the polls. So they're skewed 5 points off of, outside of how they skew Democrats. They're skewed 5 points off out of the rural areas, right? They're 5 points off that way or 3 points off that way. And if you add those two things up, where Trump is down by 2, he's actually up by 4 or 5.
It will be really fascinating to see how this goes down because, Frank Luntz even says he is going to quit if he's wrong and Trump wins. He will quit. So we'll see if these guys actually quit.
He's also got 2 weeks to adjust.
That's true.
A week.
That's true.
Now
a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. It is fascinating to me, and they're talking about this right now in the chat room too. And JD and I talked about this in 2016. Landlines, cell phones, and we've talked about it on here. Like, I don't answer an unknown number on my phone. I just don't. And so
I don't either.
It's fascinating to me because I've even asked this on Twitter, and I had a lot of response. There are a lot of people out there that will answer an unknown number. I just don't. It's fascinating to me.
Wow. Yeah, the only time I answer unknown numbers is if I'm looking for jobs. So if I'm looking for a job, I will. Otherwise, you can leave me a voicemail.
Well, and sometimes, like if my mom and dad are in the hospital, or if we have a new doctor or something, and I'm waiting for a call back for some reason. If there's a specific, when I'm looking at it going, but on my phone now, everything comes up as spam or potential spam if it's kind of a mass caller. So I'm not even sure how that would I don't even know how it would get through. It's fascinating.
I'm sure a lot of those places come up as spam as well. So
here's my thing. I have seen different people say, like people that live in Delaware, people that live, like Diana's talked about New Hampshire, different people who live in areas that are normally blue, my cousin out in California, that are seeing a lot of Trump signs. Trump office is having a hard time keeping signs in stock. Just seeing the turnout when there's a parade or a boat parade or just anything for Trump versus Biden. So if you forget the polls and you're just going by that alone, even as Sam screenshot the town hall, like originally right away when she was screenshot on the YouTube, the numbers that we're watching, I don't know if you recall or not, but it was really low. I want to say it was 20-some thousand. People in chat room might remember Politibunny when she screenshot it versus I think 514,000 or something like that for Trump. And then later, once that started getting out there, all of a sudden you had TikTok going on and skewing the numbers. You had people, a shout out to everybody, go do that. But just watching it, screening it live, that was the numbers. So it just seems to me all these anecdotal things add up, right?
Well, I mean, if you look at it like an investigator, the circumstantial evidence adds up. So are anecdotal things circumstantial evidence? Technically, yeah.
That's just what I'm thinking. I just think it's crazy. We just saw again Biden. I think Stacy posted it. It was very funny. It showed it's a two different videos. One of Trump's chopper coming in and all these people waiting for him at his rally. The same time Biden is walking into a setting with not very many people, and they're all inside these hula hoops in these chairs. They're all socially distanced, and there's only a handful. I mean, it just seems crazy.
Yeah, and so outside of, to that point, right, outside of the Biden family scandal, I don't think anything really even needed to happen for Trump to win because, Brad said, and I asked him a question, but he didn't answer me. Brad said scandals don't sway voters, but they may depress turnout for one or the other. Well, I think Joe has already depressed the enthusiasm in the party. Yes. We talked about Bernie before the show too. If Bernie had won, he'd have enthusiasm on his side. I think.
Yeah, he would. He'd have big crowds. He'd have college kids.
Yeah, and he's pulled the biggest crowd for the Biden campaign already. He hasn't been anywhere since he did it. So I think Biden said, "You can't do this anymore because you get way more people than I do." I believe he had the biggest crowd in the campaign. However,
I haven't. Yeah,
yeah. However, I mean, I may not be right about that, but it was much bigger than Joe's crowds, and Trump is pulling tens of thousands of people, and it's not, people they paid to come in. It's people that waited in line for 2 days to get in. That kind of enthusiasm. Trump says this when he speaks at these things, but he says nobody's ever seen this before. I believe before television, we may have seen those kind of crowds for, popular presidents.
I think you're right.
For popular presidents in big cities. Other than that, he may actually be right about that. Like, Kennedy probably drew really big crowds. Reagan drew big crowds, but I don't know if he could, fill a tarmac like that. I don't know if Reagan could do that. Maybe, in this day and age, if he came back from the dead. But the guy feels like he'll fill a freaking tarmac. It's crazy.
It is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I don't know. It is nuts. I don't know if, let's see if Brad answered. Oh, no. Brad says, what? No, let me see.
No,
Did you answer, Brad? Nope, you didn't.
He didn't answer. Brad is a little scatterbrained. Oh, wait, did I say that out loud? Okay. But anyway, I'm going to assume, since he hasn't answered me, that's an acknowledgement that I was right. He'll look now.
Yes.
He'll look now. So, but so today, but because we only have 10 minutes left, I wanted to talk about the fact that the Senate chose not to question Tony Bobulinski, and because Ron Johnson announced that, I think later in the afternoon today, that they weren't going to have him in to testify in an open session or at all. And there's a logical, and a lot of people on Twitter are upset about it, so I'm going to just roll out a logical explanation for that. So FBI is supposedly investigating, and Ron Johnson has been yelling about where they are with their investigation and get your ass over here and brief me and this, that, and the other thing, whatnot. At the same time, what was the other? There was another thing with that. But so he announced that they're not going to have him in to testify. Tucker had, as we've talked about on Monday night, Bogolinski did an interview with Tucker, or was it last night? It was long. It was last night. Tuesday night, he did an interview with Tucker, and it was the full hour, and it was very detailed, and it was the information that most of the information that the Senate would try to get out of him if he testified, but it would be a bunch of Senate drama. And you would also have the Democrats in there to discredit him and make him look bad, right? So So one half of the logical explanation is that Tucker got out what the Senate would have wanted to get out to the people. Everything else the Senate does behind the scenes.
Right.
The other part of the logical explanation is that it's possible, with all of Ron Johnson's yelling and screaming at the FBI having stopped now, that the FBI came and did what they should have done from the beginning, but understandably an investigation and lots of drama in Congress, they might be reluctant to do that. I'm not saying that it's right. I don't think it's right. But I can understand why, with all the political charge, the argument could be made and accepted that it's not the right thing to do. I believe it would have been the right thing to do. But they may have finally gotten their ass over there and done that, and he's satisfied. He's satisfied that he's got a view into what the FBI is doing and understands that, and they have an agreement that he's going to do that, and he probably, if that happened, he said, the minute you drop the ball on me, I resume raising hell. And Tucker got the word out, and that to me is a perfectly logical explanation for why he might have done that. The other thing I wanted to talk about that people are upset about is that everyone is very upset that it's taken the FBI so long to get to any information on this laptop. That's not necessarily the case. From everything that I've heard, I believe wholeheartedly that that laptop was the genesis for at least 2 investigations. We've heard a third about child endangerment, but I'm not embracing that part of the story until I've actually... I feel like I know enough about enough evidence to say that that's probably likely. However, the national security investigation and the money laundering and fraud investigation, I've seen enough to believe that they would have opened 2 investigations in that. The third one, maybe. People that I don't believe lie about stuff like that are actually saying it, but I can't wrap my head around that because I haven't seen it. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah.
So I wanted to say those 2 things, and I know that it's not going to make anybody go, well, okay, then I don't question the FBI anymore. I don't want anybody to do that. There are possible logical explanations. When you have digital evidence like that and you're trying to build 3 cases out of it and cover all of the dots, cross all the T's that you have to cover.
Right.
It takes like a year. I'd be like, it would have taken me 3. I'm not that good, but I mean,
Well, they did. They had to have been looking at something because they were all able to come right out and say this had nothing to do with Russia.
Oh, right. It's exactly, Jody. Exactly. So they know what's going on, but the FBI should have somehow communicated to Congress what needed to be communicated to Congress a year ago, or close to a year ago. And there's no excuse for that. I can't be okay with that. Regardless of both of those logical explanations are true, it still doesn't excuse not communicating anything to anyone and letting the impeachment go the way.
Amen. Exactly.
That impeachment, right? So once a president has been impeached, it's a mark, and it's a lot of people say it really weakens them. I think it's hard to weaken this particular president because he just doesn't give a.
Right, and he knows what bullshit it was, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, he knows what he knows for sure. So I think it's really hard to do that. But that doesn't mean that everybody that wants a piece of you doesn't take advantage of that. And to some extent, it's led to a lot of other things. Without getting all tinfoil, it's led to a lot of the other things that we've seen in the past 12 months.
Right. So and it's just nonsense. It's
right.
This poor president. I mean, it's hard to feel real sorry for Trump because a lot of it he does bring on himself. But it has been nonsensical from the impeachment crap, the Russia crap. You have this Miles Taylor crap. I mean, please, how ridiculous.
If that's their late October surprise, I think that's hilarious because he's like.
I think a lot of people on the left were thoroughly disappointed that he was the anonymous source.
Oh, I bet they were. Yeah, I saw some things from left media that I was like, well, this didn't go over quite like they wanted it to. I think it really bombed. Because he's not, when you want to talk about credible and not credible, he's not credible.
No, he was like fifth removed from the president. I mean, did he ever? I mean, maybe one or two meetings.
A deputy chief of staff for the Department of Homeland Security.
He was. What was the blonde's name? That was the DHS person. Norwegian name or Swedish name.
I can't remember off the top of my head either.
Well, it was her. It was in her office, so it wasn't even her. I mean,
Yeah, she was. It starts with a K.
Yes.
Or her first name
Kirsten?
Nielsen.
I don't remember.
Nielsen. Kristen Nielsen or Kirsten Nielsen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kirsten Nielsen. Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Her deputy chief of staff, so he reported to her chief of staff. And then, right.
It's very funny because it's like they kept reporting it was a person close to the president, a high up official. Like they kept making it sound like this is really serious stuff.
And reporters, because I don't typically call them journalists, and generally I'm definitely not going to, but reporters on the left were really kind of annoyed by that whole thing. Like, you said he was a senior official. This is hardly a senior official. Like, you just, like, New York Times, you're done because you, like, totally pulled the wool over our eyes. You lied to us. They were mad.
Yes. And honestly, this is why, like, a lot of the guys, I listen to a lot of, like, Dave Rubin or Tim Pool, people that wouldn't normally vote for Trump because I'm just curious of their take on it. And it's the stuff like this that has made them say, really for them, they're voting for Trump, but it's really against the press because they are so disgusted. So it is rather fascinating that once again this kind of stuff happens. Oh, this is funny. Okay, Jeff posted in our chat room. Seth Mandel made a tweet, and it says, shows, that famous picture of Trump talking to the kid mowing in his yard. Stop telling people you're a senior White House official. It's very funny, Jeff, and it's very true. That's about their speed. Well, thank you so much, Lou, for filling in for Diane. We're so glad you guys could join us tonight. Time just flew by. You guys stay tuned for Rick and Leslie, and I'm not really sure who is all on tonight. Orty. You guys will get a good show if you stay on KLRN.
Ron, Crow.
Yeah, thank you, everybody, for helping out in the chat room.
Jeff, JC.
By the way, Jeff did answer you finally. He said, I'd say Hillary's scandal scared some of the Dems and possibly swayed some independents.
But I do agree with he feels like the election is more of a referendum against the media. I totally agree with that. I think that it's in a big way going to be that way. But yeah, I still think this scandal, the laptop, is basically, for all intents and purposes, Hillary's emails. Might sway some independents. I believe there's probably 1% or 2% in there that might be swayed by something like this. Maybe 3%, and that's enough to win. That's funny. Ron, you're funny. Okay, so that's it.
All right, thanks, guys. We'll see you next week, and we'll know then who the new president is.
Oh, dear. Or maybe. We might.
I know. Maybe. Probably not.
Depends on Texas.
Good night.